Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, good. This time we're tackling extreme ownership by two former Navy SEALs, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin.
Yeah, great book.
So these guys, they took what they learned leading in combat, like in the really chaotic streets of Ramadi, Iraq, and they figured out how to apply it to, well, pretty much anything.
It's a really fascinating bridge they make. You know, Ramadi back in 2006, that was a pressure cooker, right?
Right.
IEDs, ambushes, the whole city was on edge. And you've got the SEALs, they're trained for that intensity, but they were working side by side with Iraqi forces who weren't always as prepared.
Yeah, I can imagine the challenges there. Trying to bring those two worlds together. Like you have these elite warriors used to operating with incredible precision, and then you have a different level of experience, right?
Right.
So did that cause friction?
Oh, absolutely. Initially, there was a lot of skepticism from the SEALs. They felt like working with the Iraqi forces was a disadvantage.
Like mixing oil and water.
Kind of, yeah. It's like, how do you blend these two? But Jocko and Leif explained that this is exactly what forced them to adapt. They had to completely rethink their approach to leadership.
And that's where extreme ownership comes in.
Exactly.
So go ahead, give me the rundown. What is the core idea?
The core idea is that leaders take complete responsibility for everything. No excuses, no blaming others. You just laser focus on the mission.
Okay, it is extreme. I get why they call it extreme ownership. But how did they even come up with this concept? Was there like a specific thing, a moment that solidified this idea?
Well, there's a really gripping story in the book. It's about a near fratricide incident.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, almost friendly fire between SEAL units.
Oh, wow.
It was just chaotic, miscommunication, things spiraling.
Yeah, now that sounds intense.
Yeah, it was a very close call. And in the debrief,
Yeah.
everyone's pointing fingers.
Of course,
Right.
yeah.
But Jocko, he was the task unit commander. He shut it down. He said, nope, I am responsible. I failed to ensure clear communication. I failed to set the conditions for success.
Wow.
Yeah. And that moment, it was a game changer for him and the whole team.
So taking ownership wasn't about admitting weakness. It was actually about taking control.
Exactly. And what's amazing is they then applied this same principle to the business world.
Okay, that's where I was hoping we'd go with this.
Yeah. Through their corporate training,
Yeah.
they showed that extreme ownership is not just for SEALs. It works, this framework, for leadership in any field.
So how does it translate from a combat zone to, let's say, like a boardroom?
Well, they have lots of real-world examples. One that sticks out is about a VP presenting a plan, and it totally flops.
Okay, yeah.
This first reaction, blame the team. Oh, they didn't execute it properly. Classic passing the buck.
Yeah, I've seen that. What did they do with him?
So Jocko and Leif were coaching him, and they stopped him right there. They said, hold on. What could you have done differently to set your team up for success?
Right.
Like, it's about taking a hard look in the mirror, which can be tough, especially when you're in a high-pressure environment.
Did he fight them on it?
Oh, yeah, he did it first, naturally. Nobody likes swallowing their ego, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, he gets it. Taking ownership wasn't weakness. It was about strength, accountability, and that shift, that's where real leadership begins.
I like it. So what happened? Did he go back to the board with this new perspective?
Yeah, he did. He owned his part in the failure, presented a plan for improvement, and the board, they were impressed.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, they saw a leader stepping up, taking responsibility, learning. That's powerful.
It is. That's extreme ownership in action.
This is already making me think of situations where maybe I could be taking more ownership. But is extreme ownership the only principle they talk about?
Oh, no. That's just the foundation. They build on it with a whole framework.
Okay.
A framework of other concepts.
Yeah.
All about helping leaders build those high-performing teams.
So what's next? What else is in this framework?
One that ties in really closely is the idea of believe.
Believe in what?
Believe in the mission.
Yeah.
They argue that if you as a leader don't believe in what you're doing, your team won't either.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And if nobody believes, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know how demotivating it is to work on something you don't believe in, right?
Exactly.
So imagine leading a team in life or death situations with that same feeling.
Yeah. That's why believing in the mission is so crucial. It creates trust, especially when things get tough.
Okay. But how do you get a team to believe when they're skeptical or when the mission just seems impossible?
There's a great example in the book about a sales team.
Okay.
And they're skeptical about a new compensation plan. They're like, this is unfair. This will hurt our performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Classic sales team.
Right. But instead of just, mandating this plan, the CEO, she addressed their concerns directly.
Okay, so she didn't just tell them what to do. She explained the why.
Exactly. The why behind the changes and how it connected to the company's larger goals, the bigger vision. And importantly, she genuinely believed in it herself.
So that conviction, it was contagious.
Absolutely. The sales team, they start seeing it from her perspective.
Yeah.
And the skepticism, it slowly turns into buy-in.
Okay, so it's about leading with authenticity and understanding the big picture. I'm liking this. What comes next?
So this emphasis on clear communication, teamwork, it leads us to cover and move.
Oh, okay, that sounds very military.
What it is, in combat, it means one unit provides suppressive fire.
Right.
To cover the advance of another unit.
Right.
Teamwork, supporting each other to get the job done.
Okay, but break it down for me. How do you provide suppressive fire in business? What does that look like?
It's anything that allows a teammate to focus on a critical task. You could be taking on some of their responsibilities or running interference so they don't get distracted, or just offering support, encouragement when they're feeling overwhelmed.
So less literal gunfire, more, having each other's backs.
Exactly. There's this example where a production manager is blaming a transportation subsidiary for delays. Constantly. He's frustrated, venting, pointing fingers.
So did Jocko and Leif tell him to cover and move?
You got it. They're like, instead of blaming, help each other out. Find solutions together.
Right. It's like we've all been there where teamwork breaks down and people start blaming and the mission just suffers.
For sure. Cover and move is about prioritizing the mission above all else and recognizing that success depends on everyone working together.
Yeah, it's like that we're in this together mentality, but applied strategically. Okay, what else?
Well, this next one, it resonates with anyone who's ever been bogged down in complexity. It's keep it simple.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah. SEALs operate in high-pressure, dynamic environments. They learned that overly complicated plans, they just fall apart under pressure.
Yeah, it rarely goes according to plan.
Right. So they had to streamline their approach. Clear communication and plans that are simple enough for everyone to understand and execute.
Makes sense. So what'd they do?
There's this quote, "A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week."
Oh, I like that. Write that down. Write that down. So how'd they put this into practice? Were there any aha moments where they realized they needed to simplify things?
Yeah. So initially, for briefings, they were using these super elaborate PowerPoint presentations, hundreds of slides, information overload.
Oh, the dreaded death by PowerPoint.
Right. So they ditched all that, switched to simple map-based plans.
Okay.
Easier to visualize, to see everyone's role. They also cut out all the jargon, focused on clear, concise language.
Cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of what needs to be done.
Exactly. Simplify, communicate clearly, execute with speed and precision. That's the SEAL way, and it's a winning formula anywhere.
I like it. This is great. But all this, it sounds very organized, very efficient. Was it a really top-down leadership structure? Like, was it always the commander calling all the shots?
That's a great question. And it leads us to another principle, decentralized command. They learned in Ramadi, in these fast-moving situations, micromanagement just doesn't work.
You can't have one person trying to control every single detail.
Nope. They had to empower junior leaders to make decisions in the field. They focused on clearly communicating what they called commander's intent.
Okay, hold on. Break that down. What is commander's intent, and how does it relate to this decentralized leadership?
So think of commander's intent as the why behind the what.
Okay.
It's not just go do this. It's this is why we're doing this. It's the objective, so they can adapt even when things go off script because they understand the bigger picture.
So you're giving them the why and trusting them to figure out the how. That's a big leap of faith.
It is, but it connects back to that belief principle.
Yeah.
If your team understands the why, they're more likely to believe in the mission and own their roles. And when they hit those unexpected obstacles, they can make decisions without needing constant direction.
It's like you're building mini leaders within the team.
That's the idea.
Okay, I like it. Did they give any examples of how this decentralized command thing played out in like a regular business setting?
Oh, yeah. So there's this story about a company president who is struggling. Team's too big, things are inefficient.
Yeah, classic growing pains. Been there.
Right. So they helped him restructure. Smaller teams, more manageable, each with a clear leader. Empowered those junior leaders to take charge.
And that worked?
Total turnaround. Communication improved, decisions happened faster, overall efficiency went up.
Win-win. Okay, so far we've got believe, cover and move, keep it simple, and decentralized command. All stemming from that core idea of extreme ownership. This is great. But there's one thing that's been bugging me.
What's that?
We've talked a lot about, leading down the chain of command, but what about managing upwards? What about when you have a boss who just doesn't get it?
Great point. The book addresses that too. SEALs, just like anyone, have to deal with frustrating requests from higher command, right?
Yeah.
Decisions that seem out of touch.
Ever had a boss who just didn't get it?
Oh, for sure. So this section, it gives some tactical approaches for those situations. SEALs learn to proactively address concerns from higher command by providing context information to help shape those decisions.
So it's about understanding the perspective of those above you
Yeah.
and finding ways to communicate your own effectively.
Right. Building trust and understanding up the chain, just like you would down the chain.
Interesting. So extreme ownership isn't just about taking responsibility for your actions. It's about understanding how they impact everyone around you, above you, below you.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach, recognizing that everyone has a role in the mission's success.
Okay, this is giving me a lot to think about. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to leading downwards for a second.
Sure.
We talked about decentralized command, empowering junior leaders, but are there any other tips for effectively leading your team?
One of the big ones is communication. It's not just about what to do, but why.
The why behind the tasks.
Yes. When they get the bigger picture, how their actions contribute to the mission, they're more engaged, more motivated.
They feel ownership.
Exactly. And there's this powerful story. It shows how SEAL operators who had more ownership in planning, even a small part, were less likely to burn out or get negative.
Interesting. So it's not just about delegating, it's about giving them a sense of purpose.
Precisely. And that is what truly effective leadership is all about.
Okay, I'm really starting to see how deep this extreme ownership concept goes. It's not just about taking responsibility, but believing in the mission, empowering your team, and communicating clearly. But something we haven't touched on yet is the importance of discipline and procedures, which I imagine is huge in the SEAL world.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's another critical piece of the puzzle. The book really dives into this with a principle they call standard operating procedures, or SOPs for short.
SOPs.
Yeah. They argue that having clear, well-defined procedures, it helps teams operate more efficiently and reduces the chances of errors, especially when the pressure is on.
That makes sense. When you're in a high-stakes environment, you don't want to be figuring things out on the fly. You need a plan.
Exactly. They illustrate this with a rather humorous anecdote about how early on in Iraq, SEALs would essentially ransack houses when they were searching for evidence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were flipping furniture, tearing things apart, creating chaos.
Sounds a bit like a demolition derby, highly skilled, but maybe not the most effective approach.
You got it. They were great at breaking things, but not so great at finding the specific information they needed.
Okay, so what did they do?
They realized they needed a more disciplined approach. So they developed a clear SOP for evidence searches, assigning roles, dividing the search space, and following a systematic process.
So they traded chaos for order. I bet that made a big difference.
It was a game changer. This new SOP helped them collect evidence more efficiently and accurately, reducing the chance of missing crucial details. And it also reduced the stress and frustration that comes with operating in a chaotic environment.
You know, this idea of SOPs, it really resonates with me. I'm a bit of an organization freak myself, and I found that having clear processes in place, even for simple things, just makes life so much smoother.
Absolutely. And the beauty of SOPs is that they can be applied to any field, not just military operations. The authors provide an example of a CFO who was struggling to shut down an unprofitable division.
Okay.
He was hesitant, delaying the decision,
Yeah.
and it was costing the company money.
Ugh, analysis paralysis. I've been there too. Sometimes having too many options can be just as paralyzing as having no options at all.
Exactly. So Jocko and Leif coached him to develop a clear SOP for the process, outlining the steps to take, communication protocols, timelines, everything.
Okay.
This gave him a framework to follow, a sense of control, and the confidence to make that tough decision.
So even when facing difficult decisions, having a clear process can make it easier to take action.
Precisely. SOPs help to reduce uncertainty, minimize risk, and ensure consistent execution. It's a valuable principle for any leader in any organization.
This is making me think about all the areas of my life where a good SOP could come in handy, everything from managing projects at work to organizing my family schedule. But I'm curious, are there any other principles from the book that we haven't covered yet?
Yes, there are a few more. One that I think is particularly insightful is the concept of prioritize and execute.
Prioritize and execute. Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean in the context of extreme ownership?
It's about recognizing that in any situation, especially a chaotic one, you're going to be faced with multiple tasks, problems, and priorities. The key is to be able to quickly assess the situation, identify the most critical task, and focus all your energy on executing it.
So it's about cutting through the noise and focusing on what matters most.
Exactly. SEALs operate in environments where they're constantly bombarded with information and demands they had to develop the ability to prioritize and execute ruthlessly in order to survive.
It almost sounds like a mental discipline, like a form of meditation.
It is. In a way, it's about being present in the moment, assessing the situation clearly and making a decision, and then once you've made that decision, you commit to it fully and execute it with everything you've got.
No second guessing, no hesitation, just action.
Exactly. The book gives an example of a SEAL platoon that's pinned down by enemy fire. They're taking casualties and the situation is deteriorating rapidly. The platoon leader, under immense pressure, has to make a split-second decision. Does he try to extract his team under fire, risking further casualties? Or does he call in air support, which could take precious time to arrive?
Wow, talk about a high-pressure situation.
He quickly assessed the situation, determined that calling in air support was the most strategic option, even though it meant waiting longer under fire. He made the decision, communicated it clearly to his team, and then they hunkered down and prepared for the airstrike.
So he prioritized the task that had the greatest chance of success, even though it wasn't the easiest or most immediate solution.
Exactly. And because he communicated his intent clearly and his team trusted his judgment, they were able to weather the storm and ultimately achieve their objective.
That's a powerful example of prioritize and execute in action. It's a principle that could apply to any leader in any field, whether you're leading a team in a boardroom, a classroom, or even your own family. Being able to prioritize and execute effectively is essential.
Absolutely. And it's a skill that can be developed with practice. The more you train yourself to assess situations, clearly make decisions decisively, and execute with focus, the more effective you'll become as a leader.
This is making me think about all the times I've gotten bogged down in trying to do too many things at once or second-guessing myself after making a decision. It's a recipe for stress and inefficiency.
It is. And that's where prioritize and execute comes in. It's about simplifying, focusing, and taking action.
Yeah.
It's about trusting your judgment and committing to your decisions.
Okay. I'm adding prioritize and execute to my list of takeaways from extreme ownership. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, there's one more principle I want to explore. It's a phrase that's been popping up throughout our conversation, and I think it's time we give it its due attention.
You're talking about decentralized command, right?
Right. We've talked about it in the context of empowering junior leaders, but I think there's more to it than that.
You're absolutely right. Decentralized command is a multifaceted principle, and it goes beyond simply delegating tasks. It's about creating a culture of ownership and accountability at all levels of an organization.
Okay, now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. How do you actually create that culture?
It starts with trust. Leaders need to trust their team members to make decisions and take ownership of their roles, and team members need to trust their leaders to provide them with the resources and support they need to succeed.
That makes sense, but trust isn't just something you can snap your fingers and create. It has to be earned, right?
Absolutely. Building trust takes time and consistent effort. It requires clear communication, transparency, and a willingness to be vulnerable.
So it's not just about giving orders and expecting people to follow them blindly. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered.
Precisely. And that's where decentralized command comes in. When you create a culture of trust and empower people to take ownership, you unlock their potential and create a more resilient and adaptable organization.
This is reminding me of that old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
That's a great analogy. Decentralized command is about teaching people to fish. It's about giving them the tools, knowledge, and support they need to become self-sufficient and make a real impact.
Okay, I'm really starting to see the power of this principle, but I'm also wondering if there are any potential downsides to decentralizing command. I mean, isn't there a risk of things falling apart if you give too much autonomy to people who might not be ready for it?
That's a valid concern, and it's something that Jocko and Leif address in the book. They emphasize that Decentralized command doesn't mean relinquishing all control or creating chaos. It's about finding the right balance between central leadership and distributed decision-making.
So it's not a free-for-all. There still needs to be a clear chain of command and accountability.
Absolutely. The key is to establish clear boundaries, roles, and responsibilities. Leaders need to define the parameters within which their team members can operate, and they need to provide clear guidance and support.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're giving people enough autonomy to thrive, but also providing the structure and support they need to succeed.
Exactly. And it's a process that requires ongoing communication and adjustment as teams evolve and situations change. Leaders need to be willing to adapt their approach and recalibrate the balance of power.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of how I lead my own team. I tend to be a bit of a control freak, so this concept of decentralized command is definitely a challenge for me.
It's a challenge for many leaders. Letting go of control can be difficult, but it's essential for creating a truly high-performing team.
I'm starting to see that, and I'm realizing that extreme ownership isn't just about taking responsibility for my own actions. It's also about empowering others to take ownership of theirs.
Precisely, and when you create that culture of shared ownership and accountability, you unlock a whole new level of potential within your team.
This has been a truly insightful conversation. I'm already feeling inspired to reevaluate my own leadership style and see how I can apply these principles to my work and my life.
I'm glad to hear that extreme ownership is a powerful framework that can help anyone become a more effective leader, regardless of their industry or experience level.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more principle that's been simmering in my mind throughout our conversation. It's the idea of leading up the chain.
Ah, yes. That's a crucial aspect of extreme ownership that we haven't fully explored yet.
We talked about it briefly in the context of dealing with difficult bosses, but I think there's more to it than that. It's not just about managing upwards, it's about actively leading upwards, right?
You're absolutely right. Leading up the chain is about proactively communicating with your superiors, providing them with the information they need to make informed decisions, and offering constructive feedback and solutions.
So it's not about complaining or trying to undermine your boss. It's about being a valuable partner and helping them succeed.
Exactly. And it's a skill that requires tact diplomacy and a deep understanding of your boss's perspective and priorities.
Okay, let's get practical. How do you actually lead up the chain effectively? What are some specific things you can do?
First and foremost, you need to establish a strong relationship with your boss based on trust and mutual respect. This means being reliable, delivering on your commitments, and demonstrating your competence.
So it starts with proving yourself as a valuable asset.
Exactly. Once you've established that foundation of trust, you can start to be more proactive in your communication. This means keeping your boss informed about your progress on projects proactively, identifying potential problems, and offering solutions rather than just pointing out issues.
So it's about being a problem solver, not a problem creator.
Precisely. And when you do identify problems, it's important to frame your feedback in a constructive and helpful way. Focus on the impact of the problem, not on assigning blame or criticizing individuals.
So instead of saying, hey, Bob messed up this report, you might say something like, this report has some inaccuracies that could potentially impact our decision making. Here's what I recommend we do to fix it.
Exactly. It's about focusing on solutions and moving forward in a positive direction.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of how I interact with my own boss. I've definitely been guilty of focusing on the problems rather than the solutions.
It's a common trap, but with a little effort and practice, anyone can learn to lead up the chain effectively.
This is such a valuable insight. I'm realizing that extreme ownership isn't just about taking responsibility for your own actions. It's also about taking responsibility for the success of your team and your leaders.
You're getting it. It's a holistic approach to leadership that recognizes that everyone has a role to play in achieving the mission.
This is making me think about all the times I've complained about my boss or felt frustrated by their decisions. Maybe I should have been focusing more on how I could help them succeed.
It's a shift in perspective that can make a world of difference when you approach your relationship with your boss from a place of partnership and support. You create a more positive and productive work environment for everyone.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be putting leading up the chain into practice. But before we move on to our final part of this deep dive, I want to bring it back to the listener. We've covered a lot of ground here, and I want to make sure it's all sinking in.
That's a great point. It's easy to get lost in the details, but the real power of extreme ownership lies in its application.
So let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far and how it can be applied to our own lives.
Exactly. Think about a time when you faced a challenging situation at work or in your personal life. How could the principles of extreme ownership have helped you to navigate that situation more effectively?
That's a great question. I'm sure everyone listening can relate to feeling overwhelmed or frustrated by a difficult situation.
Absolutely. And the beauty of extreme ownership is that it provides a framework for approaching any challenge with clarity, confidence, and a sense of purpose.
So instead of feeling like a victim of circumstances, we can choose to take ownership and become active agents in our own lives.
Precisely. And when we do that, we unlock a whole new level of potential within ourselves and within our teams.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the final part of our deep dive. Let's explore some more of the key principles from extreme ownership and see how they can help us to become more effective leaders in all areas of our lives.
Okay, we're back. Final part of our extreme ownership deep dive. I feel like we've already covered so much good stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing Jocko and Leif have even more to give us, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a bunch more. We've been talking about communication a lot. But there's this other principle. It's called check the ego.
Check the ego. Okay, I like it already. Ego gets in the way of so much. How do they talk about it in the book?
Basically, they say ego can be a leader's worst enemy.
Yeah.
It clouds your judgment, it messes with communication, it stops you from seeing the big picture.
Oh, I've definitely seen that happen. Worked with people like that. Ego just takes over. So how do we check the ego? How do we make sure it doesn't sabotage our leadership?
Well, the first step is self-awareness. You have to recognize when your ego is driving your decisions. So taking a step back and being honest with yourself. Am I doing this for the team, or am I just trying to, prove something?
Exactly. But that's not always easy.
No. It's hard to be honest with yourself sometimes.
It is. We all have those blind spots.
So how do you get past them, those blind spots?
One thing that helps is feedback. Ask your team. Ask your peers. Even ask your boss. Get their honest take on your leadership.
So you're actually seeking out opinions that might be tough to hear.
You gotta. It's how you grow. When you're open to feedback, you can see where your ego might be messing things up. And then you can fix it.
That's a good point. But is it ever okay to let your ego kind of, I don't know, drive you? Don't you need some ego for confidence, for ambition?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's a difference between healthy self-worth and letting your ego go crazy.
Right.
Yeah, confidence is important. You need that to lead. But it has to be realistic. When it gets inflated, turns into arrogance, that's when you start making bad calls.
Okay, yeah, I get it. It's about knowing when your ego is working for you and when it's working against you.
Exactly. And checking the ego, it's an ongoing thing. You have to think about it with every decision.
This is making me think about all the times I've dug my heels in, refused to admit I was wrong, even when I knew I was. Ego was definitely in the driver's seat there.
Oh, we've all been there. The key is to learn from it.
Right.
And, have the humility to admit when you're wrong. Be open to changing your mind.
That's a tough one. Okay, check the ego. Going on the takeaway list for sure. It's like a reminder to stay grounded. Seek out different perspectives. Be open to learning.
For sure. And it's not just for work. It's for everything.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Ego shows up in your personal life too, relationships, family, even how you talk to yourself.
Totally. It can be a sneaky little saboteur. So yeah, stay vigilant. Practice that self-awareness.
Okay, ready for the final principle. What else have they got for us?
They end the book with something that's simple but really powerful. It's lead.
Lead. Yeah, it's a great word, but kind of intimidating too. What does that even mean, to lead? Especially with all this extreme ownership stuff.
Leading, in their framework, it means taking that full responsibility for yourself, for your team, setting expectations, communicating well, empowering others, and inspiring them to achieve that goal, whatever the goal is.
So it's not just a title, not just being the boss. It's about doing all these things we've been talking about.
Right. It's a verb, not a noun. It's about what you do, not who you are.
Oh, I like that. Leadership is action, not a position.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, everyone can be a leader. It doesn't matter what your title is.
Yeah, you can lead in your family, your community, at work, anywhere.
Yeah. It's about stepping up, taking ownership, making a positive impact.
This is making me think about all the people I consider leaders. And it's not because of their job title. It's how they act, how they inspire other people, how they make a difference.
That's it. True leadership is about character, integrity. It's about wanting to help others.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired, ready to go out there and lead with extreme ownership.
That's what I like to hear. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about always trying to improve, learning from mistakes, helping others do the same.
This has been great. We went from battlefields to boardrooms, and I think we got some really good stuff out of it.
I'm glad you think so. This framework, extreme ownership, it can help anyone be a better leader. Doesn't matter what you do or how much experience you have.
So as we wrap up this episode, what's the one thing, the one challenge you would give to our listeners?
Here's what I'd ask. What part of your life needs some extreme ownership right now? Is it a project at work that's stuck, a relationship that needs work, maybe even just your own goals? Take a minute, really look at it, and ask yourself, what's my role here? What can I own, and what can I do to make things better?
That's a great question. I think we can all relate to feeling stuck sometimes.
Yeah, and extreme ownership, it gives you a way to approach any challenge with clarity, confidence, a sense of purpose.
So instead of feeling like things are just happening to you, you can take control, be the leader of your own life.
Exactly. And when you do that, you unlock all this potential for yourself, for your team, for everyone.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into extreme ownership. It's all on you now. Take ownership, lead well, and win.